this is a year before I thought it was going to happen. I know I saw like Bomani Jones and Joel Anderson. They spoke about it, and Bomani was like, "Nah, he's going to retire this year." I saw Ross Dellenberger from Sports Illustrated or Yahoo now. He predicted that Saban would retire this calendar year, and I was with him on that. But I was talking to a friend of mine, Fred. Shout out to Fred Purdue. Used to have a podcast with him, and he's just a sycophant for coaches. So I had to literally hang up on him when he goes on these diatribes about Saban. And, he's a fan of the team that Belichick coaches. And I literally had to outlaw it on our phone calls. I said, don't mention him. I'm going to hang up on you because I'm tired of it because it's crazy. But anyways, he was talking about, Saban's not leaving. And I told him last week, I said, well, first of all, I called my shot and said Michigan is going to beat them and win the national championship. So I'm counting. So a couple weeks ago, I was counting this season as a 2-loss season for Alabama before that second loss to Michigan. And I said, the next 2-loss season after this one, that's it. And Alabama people are crazy. And it's not just the fans on message boards or those who call into that, TV show with that bald dude who, whatever. But it's the money people as well. Like, they are crazy, bro. They have not won a championship in 3 years. And I know that there have been whispers about, does Saban have it? That, like, you had to have 4th and a mile and a half, and Auburn just doing the least possible and gifting Alabama that throw to win that game from a 2-loss regular season. Bro, like, that's what it took an all-time gaffe by your biggest rival not to have 2 losses in this regular season. Like, that's the margin and everything. And I know people talking about, if they would have lost that game to Auburn and not been in the playoff, you would already had calls for his job. You would have had people in the streets talking about it's time for him to go. So yeah, I said 2 weeks ago, it was actually 2 weeks, that the next 2-loss season would be the one that did him in. But instead he did it a year early, from what I thought, which is crazy. But, you're already seeing the fallout on the recruiting trail. Ryan Williams, who's a wide receiver 5-star who was in a 25 class, reclassified up to 24, was committed to them. 37 minutes after the Saban news hits, he just decommitted. And he was already trending towards Auburn or elsewhere, right? But he was just like, you know what? Why fake the funk, right? And Bud Elliott actually asked this kid at the All-American game, said, so teams negative recruit against Saban, talking about, he's getting old and he's going to retire. And Ryan Williams at the All-American Bowl last week on video said, Saban told me, man, they going to have to, the only way I'm getting up off of this job is going into the grave. I'm going to be here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for the long haul at 72 years old, right? I'm not going anywhere dead all, forget all that talk. A week later, he's retired. You know what I mean? So Ryan Williams is already decommitted. And if we spin this to Miami, right, and like what that impact can be, I know, and I hate it. I didn't even watch the All-American Bowl because I couldn't watch Jeremiah Smith light everybody on fire. It hurts my spirit to see that kid not going to Miami. But he's the latest of a line of those guys who went to Alabama instead. Even guys who were borderline-ish, if you want to view it that way. Saban said, I see a star player there, I'm going to go get him. Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, Jerry Jeudy, right? The top guys. Even if you look back, Jordan Battle, whose father I worked with at Deerfield Beach for my first job back in 2004, who I used to remember going around and wanted to be a Hurricane from the time he was a toddler, right? Miami staff at the time said, we're not sure that he's physical enough. And Nick Saban said, hey, well, number 9 from St. Thomas, come on down, play safety, 3 years in the first-round draft pick. Dallas Turner, St. Thomas Aquinas. Well, we went after him pretty hard, but Saban said, come on down, 15. Just we're going to put 25 pounds of muscle on you. Come on, make some plays. Right? Bo Scarborough, running back, went there. 4-star, 5-star. Came on a late visit to Miami. Signed there. You got guys, what's the big offensive lineman? Evan Neal, right? Same thing. 5-star from Okeechobee, had family as Miami fans and things like that. Okay, we think we can get this 6'9", 350-pound dude to come down and play offensive line. Took visits, Nah, I'm gonna end up over there, coach. Remember the Paradise camps when those had more talent on Miami's campus than Nike's The Opening had for many years? All them dudes who were like, here, got the exposure. We wrote the articles. We saw them. Yo, who's number 457? All American, All American, All American, All American, all on the intramural fields and Green Tree practice field at Miami for a camp. So you figure, look, you got them here. You can get them now, move the bar forward with their recruitment. Hey, we saw you evaluated. You came for this camp. Look, there's all these legends here. There's all this media here. There's all these fans here. Why don't you come back for an unofficial? Why don't you come back for an official? And build the recruiting through that. But even with all of that, a preponderance of those dudes went north, took a left, and ended up in Tuscaloosa. So, and look, I'm not saying every player that they signed, we would have signed. When I wrote the comparison article with Miami and Alabama recruiting years ago, it was fairly even on the players that we recruited against them. But there's a whole class of player that they recruit that wouldn't even return Miami's phone call. So I'm not saying that 100% of the guys that I've even mentioned or others would have come to Miami. However, the talent drain from South Florida specifically, from this area to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, has had a negative impact on Miami's success over the course of years. That's just real. And if you want to add other teams in there, O-State has got some guys, Clemson's got some guys, Georgia's got some guys, LSU's got some guys. There's other teams that have gotten guys and, seeded talent from South Florida. But the number one culprit for 20 fucking years was Nick Saban. So, I mean, look, one of the greatest, arguably, the most successful with championships, but arguably the greatest, college football coach of all time is Nick Saban. Him leaving is a major vacuum in the sport from a performance standpoint and also from a roster and a talent acquisition standpoint, because he's the guy that brought those guys there. If you remember Xavier Mincy, Daytona Beach mainland teammate of LJ McCray, who signed with Florida, Miami was recruiting him to the end, didn't get him. And at his announcement at the All-American Bowl, again, last week, when asked, why Alabama? Like, I know that, these teams, Georgia, Miami, other teams were going down to the wire to recruit you. Why did you choose the Crimson Tide? Literally out of this kid's mouth. Playing for Coach Saban and Coach T-Rob, what can be better? But what did he leave with? Coach Saban, a defensive backs coach, defensive coordinator who worked his way up to head coach. He's seen the progression of these guys in the secondary. He's seen the development of these guys. So noting the head coach is like Travis Hunter noting Deion Sanders. Look, because I'm not playing for the defensive coordinator. I'm playing for Deion because I'm different, like Deion was different. And so Xavier Mincy, seeing the progression of Saban's career, even at the head coaching level now of a team success, knows this guy knows what he's talking about with defensive backs. So I'm going to list him first for reasons why I went there. He is not there anymore. And that is a major, major thing. Now, if you spin this back, can this be successful or help Miami maybe to get some of the talent that was going towards Tuscaloosa to instead go to Coral Gables? It could be possible. Mario Cristobal is a great recruiter. We know that much, even if we have questions about his game day performance. But yeah, I know that it is Alabama-centric because he's was the Alabama head coach. And I know that they're going to feel the most of it and all those kind of things. But, I would be remiss, especially on a Miami show, as a Miami alum, and Miami, blogger and everything, not to point out that, hey, this can have ripple effects that have a positive effect for Miami down the line if we take advantage of the opportunity in front of us. But that remains to be seen. But, hey, congratulations to Coach Saban on a long and successful, arguably the most successful and, best career as a college coach ever. But yeah, this is seismic news in the world of college football.
It absolutely is. And there has been speculation about this happening each and every year as his age ticks up 1 year at a time, just like the rest of us, that it could happen at any moment. I got to think that he's also a bit disgruntled and a bit worn out, not physically, mentally, emotionally, like can't take it or doesn't want to step up to the challenge, but just where college football has gone with the transfer portal, with NIL and all of that. he's grown a
Well,
bit tired of. I think that's pretty obvious in what he has stated.
yeah, but I mean, on the other hand, like they were the best bagmen going back before NIL. Like, it's when you look at Stephen Godfrey's Meet the Bagman, he was embedded with SEC people. Like I've spoken to people, I've told the story, on here before through, that I heard third hand, but guys go out in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, two dudes in suits with a briefcase, order a cup of coffee, leave the briefcase, and there's $50,000 in there. And they know that the waitress is the cousin, sister's, girlfriend's friend of this recruit that they are trying to get to go to Alabama. All the Chargers and Challengers, which have stopped production. Dodge is no longer making those cars, but all of a sudden everybody has one of those at Alabama and everything. Like I know that he wanted to play holier than thou, but like when his cadre of people, when his shadow network was the most effective in the sport, it wasn't a problem. You know what I mean? So I hear you on that, but also take that with a grain of salt. But yeah.
No, I wasn't making that statement from the standpoint of defending his character in any way or integrity, but from the standpoint of what you just said, in that the effectiveness of it may be waning because of everybody else being able to do it above board. And it,
I mean, but maybe in terms of one or two players a year, but then again, at the height that he was sustaining, one or two players a year. Well, I mean, look at Jeremiah Smith. If that's the one player that that freaking matters, you know what I mean? I could see some of that, but yeah, I mean, I guess, but hey, yeah. See, whatever we're speculating, he's made the concrete decision. So yeah.
yes, he has. And Alabama has a huge decision that they have not had to make for 16 years in front of them. Falconer TRX, appreciate you being here as always. Super sticker to get us started. And we also have Falconer coming back with this one as Nick Saban entered the transfer portal.
I think that no, he has decided that he's just not going to play anymore. He's taking his ball. He's going home. There was that quarterback who was it Florida? I saw or something, who was like the third string, and he was just like, I saw it like last week. It was respectfully, not a name that you would know. He's not somebody who's played, but he was just like, you know what? I'm good. Like, I'll be here. I'll finish my degree. I'm going to go pro in something other than sports. Like that's it. And yeah, I think that that's where Nick Saban is taking his talents to, the TV world, where he will be able to make a whole bunch of money and everything. I know that ESPN continues to say that Lee Corso can stick around as long as he wants to, but golly, man, like they need to look. Lee Corso, look, congratulations. Like you've done this forever. I'm not trying to take anything away. It is tough to watch. Just bring the man in for the headgear segment, but like it's really challenging to watch him decline to this level and rate and longevity, because it's been so long. You know what I mean? But like bring him in for the headgear and then like have Nick Saban be, the coach on the set for half the show. You won't even need Saban there the whole entire time. Let them have their shenanigans. Let them do their cutaways to whatever. And then when you get to the analysis part from 10:45 to 12 on Saturday morning, like that last 75 minutes, bring in Saban. He's there. Bring in Corso at the end. But like, I'm giving away free money to ESPN. Not like they need it, because they cut their overhead and increase their profits at the same time. So like they're swimming in money. But like, yeah. But anyways, whatever.
I have wholeheartedly agreed with that perspective for a long time. And for those few people that say, well, you're heartless or no, everyone needs to perform in their role.
Right.
This is a business. This is an entertainment business. And you need to be able to perform. And it's been long, long ago that he was not able to perform in that role. And they were propping him up, doing a number of things to prop him up. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. But bring him on. Let him do the headgear. And They can continue that tradition. Falcon Rex with his own tradition here at the Voice of College Football Miami. Mario should offer Nick an assistant position just for clicks and trolling.
Not even an assistant, an analyst position, because that's where the Nick Saban School for Wayward Coaches, which is now closed, that's where they would start, right? So you get fired somewhere else. In most instances, the staff was full. So then you bring in a Mike Loxley. He gets fired in New Mexico. You bring him in as an offensive analyst, doing the, $40,000 a year job that, a grad assistant would graduate to once they're finally a full-time coach or something like that. Yeah, bring him in for that. Like, why not? I mean, we got Ed Orgeron around, right? Look, he likes to golf. We know that he wants to be in, warm weather and everything. Look, you already probably still have a home here for when you worked at the Dolphins and then left in the middle of the night. Come on down. We got good golf. We got great weather. You can be around. Look, even if you want to be like Ed Reed, where, when he was chief of staff or whatever, fly in for a couple of days a week, come over to campus 2 or 3 times a week. Look, why don't you play the Biltmore course at the world famous Biltmore Hotel in Coral Gables? If you wanted to play other courses, there's other courses owned by other people whose names I will not say in the near Miami area, but there's plenty of stuff for you to do. Nick, come on down. Only be a couple hours a day. Let's get it. And remember what I said at the beginning about Nick Saban, when I said his next 2-loss season would be the one that ran him out of town, right? The expectations of that job are beyond compare. Pressure breaks pipes, and you ain't seen pressure like the University of Alabama head coaching position. That is going to, like, the nature of that job is going to run off candidates, right? Everybody is not, look, I'm that dude, and I'm gonna be this bravado chest out. Da, da, da. You might think that, but when it comes down to brass tacks, bro, that can be a lot. And it will be very interesting for me to see who they get and where they get him from to try to follow Saban. And I tweeted it out. What is acceptable performance, right? Is 10-2 for, let's say you get insert coach here. Who cares, right? Or Dabo, because Dabo's from Alabama. He played there, right? Let's say Dabo. Multiple-time national champion, built up Clemson back into a college football power that they had not been before I was walking this earth. Okay? Dabo goes 10-2, 10-2, 10-2. Is that good enough for them?
No.
Especially if you lose, and he goes 10-2, but goes 2-1 against Auburn. So but lost to them in 3 years, right? Lost to Texas once and lost to LSU once in those 3 years, with 3 other losses to whomever you want to call, right? Is that, and continues to recruit at a top, we'll call it top 8, top 6 level every single year, right? With the NIL, which is very active, with the brand of Alabama that has been as successful, but 10-2, 10-2, 10-2 with either 1 or 2, but fewer than 3 appearances in the SEC championship game. Is that good enough? And Mark said no. And for Alabama people, I believe that the answer is no. So then, like, what are we doing? So then you're going to, in this hypothetical, after 30-6 regular seasons, right, 30 wins and 6 losses over 3 years, plus whatever bowl results and and recruiting and, off-field academics, customer, community service, all the positive runnings of the program. But they are 30-6 plus, let's say they win all their bowl games. So 33-6 over 3 years. Well, and maybe a little bit more because they could still make the playoff with that. I said that they made 2 championship games, so maybe they split their championship games, right? And win one and lose one. So we're at 35-7, 36-7, give or take over 3 years. But if at the end you're only making it to the first round of the 12-team playoff or something like that, and you're going to have calls for that person's job, and they might get fired from that job at, like, what I've put before you is not outside the realm of possibilities for the kind of performance that can be seen from a top coach at Alabama and them still getting sent away after 3 years or 4 or whatever for that, for winning 10 games a year. Some years 11, other years 12, with maybe a championship and an SEC championship along the way and 2 championship game appearances. I know that I've built this hypothetical off the top of my head, right? But that's the kind of standard that they're trying to uphold there. And if you know that going in, right, if I win 35 games in 5 years, right? 35 games in 3 years. But depending on the 6 or 7 losses, I can get shit canned. That makes it a really tough situation. And I know that younger fans know Saban's legendary 20-year run there and everything. Go back and look at what Alabama had been before. Like between Bear Bryant and Nick Saban, it was. I mean, I know that Gene Stallings and George Teague, beat Miami that one time. Yeah. But I mean, outside of that,
he had won. Yeah,
that was the one. Look at the other guys they had there. Look at the tenures that they had. Look at the success that they didn't have. Like it could go back to being a 9-3. And again, we're talking about taking Miami from a 7-win to a 9-win annual team, and then teams taking steps from 9 to 10, annually. It is tough, rarefied air to make those leaps, and even more rarefied, honestly, to the point that we've never seen before, like with Nick Saban's on-field success, to sustain that. But sliding back to being a 9.5 win average team after averaging 11 and a half wins over the course of forever, that's a lot. And I know it sounds like only a couple of games, but like a couple of games look at Miami season. A couple of games make that difference, right? That's a lot, man. But we'll see. Definitely. But Alabama is going to be very attractive. They are like Oklahoma, where they want to be good. And so they're going to put everything they can towards being good. But circling back to your directly asked question, I don't think that anybody makes it harder for Miami in terms of performance or recruiting, just because we've seen a legendary run from a legendary coach. I think that any and all options would be a degree down, at least for a while. The only one that I could see being again at Saban's peak, like recruiting power, would be Kirby, who is currently doing that at Georgia. But even if he were to leave Georgia and go over to Alabama, it would take a couple of years to get things going to that level, just like it took him a couple of years after taking over from Mark Richt. Now, he didn't make steps up along that path immediately, but it took a couple of years to get to this monster recruiting machine that they have. Even going to Alabama, just with it being a different person, I think it would still take maybe 2 years to get back to super 100% optimization from Kirby. But that's the only one that I could see being like directly on par with what we've seen from Saban.
So I'm going to add an addendum to your evaluation of Alabama's future coach, and I'm also going to bring up my favorite team. So the addendum would be that I think the focus of just about everyone is going to transition from regular season conference championship to, this 12-team playoff. So if you're spitting out 10-2 seasons, but you're able to kick it into gear during the playoff and go deep into the playoff, win a national championship once every 4 or 5 years, and there's going to be a shift in focus versus being the Buffalo Bills or the Atlanta Braves of the modern era of college football and just cranking out conference titles and then stalling in the playoffs in the first or second round, and it being a criticism that, you have this great regular season team, but you're not getting the job done in the NCAA tournament. I think there's going to be a shift in evaluation of what success looks like.